as you can see, we have a very distinguished panel of speakers here, and just let me I'll just introduce everybody here to you. The first person I would like to introduce is Hannah Byrne. And Hannah left, and this is Hannah here. So Hannah left St. Peter's School in Rathgar when she was 18, and she joined the Real Life training programme with Walk, which is in Morganstown. On the Real Life training programme, Hannah had a key worker to help her with her personal goals and well-being, and a job coach to help her access employment and education. One of Hannah's biggest passions is beauty. With help from her job coach, she started a work placement in the Tan Fairy Salon. Hannah has got support through Walk to apply for a beauty and retail sales course in Crumlin College. Studying and getting through assignments was new to Hannah, and she initially found it tough. Having never sat a state exam in school caused her great anxiety. Hannah was fully supported with study preparation and one-on-one assignment support each week. Hannah passed all modules of her course, and now she has paid work in the Tan Fairy Salon, which she says makes her feel very happy. Now that's Hannah. And sitting beside Hannah is Catherine Kelly. And Catherine is Director of Services at Walk in Morganstown. Catherine has worked in the field of intellectual disability for over 25 years. She began her career as a registered nurse, working in disability organisations across Leinster, and subsequently held frontline and management posts in residential and in day services. In 2002, Catherine was appointed as residential and respite manager to Walk, and was appointed to the position of Director of Services in 2005. Catherine has a particular interest in the development of person-centred, socially inclusive services for people who have complex needs, and in the provision of services that are driven by an equality and human rights agenda. In 2011, Catherine completed her master's degree in organisational behaviour in Trinity College Dublin. She's also a part-time lecturer in the Humanities Department of Tallaght Institute of Technology. And then further on, over there is Fiona Maloney, and she's the Education and Training Board's Ireland Director of Further Education and Training Services. Her role involves working with the 16 ETBs, or Education and Training Boards, providing strategic support to the ETB Directors of Further Education and Training. Coordination of the development and delivery of the annual FET, Further Education and Training Service Plan for ETBI engagement, and she makes arrangements between stakeholders and the ETB sector. And prior to this, Fiona was the Adult Education Officer for Cavan and Monaghan Education and Training Board, and previously for County Cavan Vocational Education Committee. So she has also, she started to work in youth services and then moved to the Cavan Institute, where she served as Director of Adult Education and taught psychology, sociology, human growth and development and policy. So very well versed in the field of the ETBs. And beside me is Gavin Rose. And Gavin lives with his family in Malahide. He's 30 years old, single, profoundly deaf with cerebral palsy, and ISL is Gavin's first language. He's also a wheelchair user, and he says he loves Manchester United. And finally then we have Gerry Tully from the National Disability, who is the National Disability Specialist in the Operations section of the HSE Disability Services. He's a member of the New Directions National Implementation Group, which Michael was speaking about earlier, and he's also a member of the HSE School Leavers Project Group. Gerry has almost 3 decades of experience around day service support for people accessing disability and mental health services. So each of our speakers, each of our panel was presented with 2 general questions to discuss. The first of these was, what do you think works well regarding the provision of education and learning opportunities for adults with disabilities in day services from your experience? And the second question was, from the challenges or issues you've experienced yourself in accessing or providing or organising education and learning in day services, what could be done to overcome those challenges? And we've asked each of our panel members to respond for about 3 to 4 minutes each to those questions. So in turn, and maybe in reverse order, I'm going to ask our panel to address those issues. So I might start with Gerry first.
Thanks, Sheila, and thanks to the NCASC for organising the conference. We're delighted to be part of this. It's a very encouraging development. What's working well was there has been a huge move towards individualised and integrated services across the services that we fund across the country. This is a very big project. There are 20,000 people approximately accessing day services, and maybe 5,500 people supporting those individuals. Our language at times is a little bit different. Michael referred to it there. We don't always talk about education. New Direction accounts for the fact that we focus on supports. And supports are very, very important to enable people to do the things that we say in New Directions and to achieve the outcomes that are required. And our staff work really, really hard on that. We've got a myriad of organisations providing services across the country in quite a varied way. But the framework that exists with this policy, which is generally accepted to be quite good, is continuing to develop and to roll out. So there's a New Directions implementation group in each of our 9 community healthcare organisations now. And our umbrella organisations like the Federation of Voluntary Bodies have an awful lot of really good examples and a community of learning where organisations share examples of good practice from one to another. And in response maybe to assist in the answer to the question that was posed there, in allaying people's fears and anxieties, nothing supports families and individuals like experiences of others. And we have really good experiences. It wouldn't come well from me to explain or to try to assure a family where there is a huge change happening in an individual's life that everything is going to be perfect. The best example comes from previous experience of individuals who have achieved that in the past. And on the Federation of Voluntary Bodies website, on the GNEO have examples now, and where people share good examples and share the pitfalls, that works very, very well. Also where people, share fears and anxieties, that assures others because, that's a reality of life. So that's something that works well. As regards learning then, we have formalised learning programmes within our existing 900 or so locations that day services are delivered across the country. Some of those are supported by DTB staff, and that's really good, and that's not going to change, I would suggest, in the near future. But there's a huge amount of informal learning happening as well. So on their first support, on supporting people to make choices and plans, staff who work with an individual to provide information and options and experiences for people, support an educational journey to a very large extent. If somebody wants to explore in their lives what they might do in their spare time or whatever the case may be, and they can go out and experience something, that's of huge benefit to them. And then they go from there and they learn. If they want to join a football club or they want to work or whatever the case may be, they'll learn, to make the choice first and then learn and move on from there. So I'm conscious of time, I don't want to take it up, but there is so much happening on the informal side. People who are decongregating from congregated settings learn to navigate their community, to use ATMs, to fill out a passport form, which challenges all of us so that they can travel, and staff support people on an informal basis. It will be a challenge for some, for the survey to capture that in a reflective way, but it's very important and it's something that we focus on a lot. So will I continue on the things that aren't working so well, or do you want to come back?
Maybe just give us a taste of the
Okay,
challenges.
well, look, our strengths are also our challenges. So the myriad of organisations, it was flagged that some organisations are really good. An awful lot of organisations are really good. But organisations will approach change in different ways. And despite the fact that we have a national policy, we have an implementation plan around that, we have structures within each of the CHOs to support organisations. We have standards, interim standards, and we have structures, and we have examples, we have training, and all of those, person-centred framework and everything. It's still difficult to move everybody along the way in a coordinated way, particularly when you want to make services individualised and support in or around 20,000 people. So that is a bit of a challenge. Obviously, beyond that then, where we want to and wish to integrate our services with other government organisations and government-funded organisations, they too will move regionally, maybe a little bit different, and that can be a challenge at times. But generally, the direction of travel is positive. I'm not saying everything is right. We could do with more resources, and that, our school leavers process is okay, it's good, it's getting there, it's been an awful lot better than it was before that. And there may be questions about that afterwards, which I'm happy to take. So just conscious of time, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks very much, Gerry. And if I can just say, we hope to have a few minutes at the end for questions and answers where people can expand. Now, Gavin, the next person I'll ask to speak is Gavin Rose. So perhaps Gavin would take us through his experience.
I suppose sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous now being up here at the front. So I suppose I've had various different experiences through education. I attended St. Joseph's School for the Deaf, and I attended St. Joseph's School for the Deaf, and it was quite difficult there in terms of wheelchair access. That was an issue in the school. Then I attended in Colester College. I had a better experience there. I attended there for 3 years. And, overall, they provided an awful lot more supports for me, and they had more, I suppose there was more access for me in that school as well. I was involved in CPC work as well, and then I attended in Roslyn Park. In Roslyn Park, it was quite difficult because in Roslyn Park, there was an issue over who would pay for the interpreter, who would pay for the PA. These questions were going back to my parents at the time and saying who was going to fund for that. And, in terms of communication, it was quite difficult. Obviously, there was deaf students that were attending there and I could communicate with them, but we did have other students that was attending in the school as well, and being able to communicate with them as a sole user of ISL was quite difficult. So I know that interpreters in general, it can be there's a shortage of interpreters, so it can be quite difficult in getting an interpreter, but that, I suppose, is really important for me as part of my education, that I need to have an interpreter provided. And then I suppose I attended different work experiences in different organisations, such as SLIS, Deaf Here, also known as Chime now, the Irish Deaf Society. And in the Irish Deaf Society in particular, I would have completed various different courses, computer courses, literacy courses, and in terms of the experience I had there, it was quite good because all the trainers, they communicate through ISL, Irish Sign Language, which is the first language, so it meant I had no problems in terms of support and access to the service. So it was mixed overall. Some of the experiences I've had weren't quite so good, but then other experiences were far better.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. Thank you. And now if I may ask Fiona Maloney to give an account of the ETB views of things.
Sure, thank you, Sheila. Looking, I suppose, firstly at the strengths, so you're all aware that we've gone through quite a significant period of reform and aggregation, so we've done a lot of reflection, probably inwardly and outwardly, in terms of our provision. But certainly when we look around the area of our supports, and our provision, I think the strengths that we can identify largely is because the ETB is a national network right into all of the local communities it serves right across the country. So we have a lot of local networks, but also that integrated relationship with various stakeholders from the HSE and WALK and other community and voluntary bodies who will service and support the whole area of disability supports and education and training. I think our greatest resource and our ability is that we can respond and be responsive to the needs as they are presented. We've consistently and will consistently work with all of the organisations to ensure that we provide that integrated approach to training and to education, so that it can be delivered in those smaller groups, those one-to-ones, but also in those larger, more dynamic groups that Hannah and I actually spoke about earlier, where you have that, the full college experience or the gradual introduction as appropriate, depending on the skills need. The integration of the vocational aspect, which allows progression into employment, into further education or higher education, but also the development of the soft skills and the development of the life skills, we would put equal and equitable focus on all of those skills for all of our learners. Now, certainly the disability we would have disability learners as a priority cohort, particularly within all of our action plans, within all of both the local strategic agreements and the national frameworks. So we would be looking certainly in the coming years again at ensuring that we have appropriate supports. And I suppose it's a challenge, but also something we're looking at, is ensuring those transitions and the support are as seamless as possible, because that is certainly a challenge we all have. We don't want to make any transition or any experience more difficult or more stressful than it actually needs to be for anybody, be that for the parents, the family, or for the young person. Our enhanced support will include our new approaches, which will include the blended learning approaches where appropriate, as well as that one-to-one, but certainly that vocational aspect where the work experience, integration of not only the vocational experience and vocational knowledge, but they're entwined in a useful way to allow the opportunity to choose what progression looks like for each individual. The challenge, as I say, is to ensure that we continue the local integrated supports, that they meet the needs of the communities, of all of our learners as they present, and that we do so in the most equitable way, the most seamless way, so that it's supportive of all of the communities and all of our learners.
Right. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you very much indeed. And now if I can ask Catherine Kelly, the Director of Services at WALK, to talk to us.
Hi everyone. I suppose what I looked at that worked is WALK is a Leinster-based organisation. It's a small to medium organisation. And we had a project a number of years ago where we worked with 2 schools in Louth, and we worked with people from 16 years of age. And that was huge in terms of early transitions. And what we had found before that was that people came from school into adult day services at 18 years of age, and that the family struggled as well as the person because they were burnt out from figuring out what day service the person was going to come to and whether they would have the funding or a day service. And they weren't given, I suppose, very late they found out whether their son or daughter had a day service. So we found if we began to work with people at 16 years of age and we began to build up the relationship with the person and with the families, that we were able to support them very easily into outcomes focused. So we moved away from providing activities to looking at outcomes for people, which were training, education and employment and social roles. Early transitions also allowed us to prepare the person and prepare the family. And I know a family member spoke earlier about risks. And it's very hard to let the person that you've advocated for all your life go. So we work a huge amount with the families on supporting the person towards independence. And in doing that as an organisation, we had to also look at the challenges we faced. And sometimes as an organisation, we can create dependencies. And we had to look at how we can be not allow them dependencies to start, and how we can support a person towards their own autonomy. And in doing so, we looked at all the areas of independence we can support a person towards. And they are things like having apps on their phone, their travel training, the soft skills that Michael spoke about earlier, like building someone's self-confidence and self-esteem, and working with people as a unit, not just as a person. Huge thing we found was that we worked with the person around their own autonomy. And we looked at the person's, their dreams, their aspirations. And when they were coming to us, we spoke to them about maybe we could look at where the person was now so we could get a baseline. We often find that when people come, they can have very limited experiences and limited exposure. And the more experiences someone has and the more exposure someone has, the more they can make real decisions about their lives. We also introduced another concept, and Hannah will probably talk a bit more about this, but it's called our peer program. So we actually provide QQI level training to students in different colleges. And it is around how they can support somebody. And they have gone on to support somebody who is their peer, so they're the same age as them, into employment or in education or in training. And as a result, and Hannah would say she doesn't want a dinosaur like me coming into a training course with her, but to go on a training course with someone who is our own age makes a huge difference for learning and for integration into that class. Communication is absolutely key. And one of the things that really works is some colleges we have great relationships with, and the partnership really, really works. And if the person that is accessing that course needs an accommodation, we can work with the teacher around what them accommodations are. That really works. And then internally within the organisation, I suppose, in order to support further education and mainstreaming for people, we really believe that it should be done by ETBs or by local colleges, and that our role is to signpost but also to support people. In doing that, we've had to look at the culture within Walk, and we really recruit staff that have a great knowledge and a great skill about signposting and networking and building really good positive relationships. We also look at a culture where we really have high expectations for people that come into look for supports from Walk. And we've moved away from activity-based because we believe activities should be done in the evening time. And we've looked at how we can support people towards real outcomes in their life, which we've looked at as being education, training, and employment. Continual learning is great. So, we used to have a key worker system, but unfortunately, if someone has a key worker that isn't an expert in a specific area that the person wants to move into, then they don't get the level of, I suppose, support they might require. So in terms of that, we've developed a pod system which really works. So we have someone that would work with individuals like Hannah, who would have experience and knowledge of supported employment, experience of knowledge. We have a community connector. We have someone that has experience and knowledge of how to link into education, and that's been really, really successful. Walk have about 11 different models. We have an inclusive education model in Tala IT. So we would have 2 people that are currently doing their degrees in Tala IT. And we had huge challenges to overcome, and we do on a daily basis for that to work. But they had a dream, and I suppose they're out there achieving it. And then we have 2 more models. One of the models is in Tala Hospital. And this is where we would work with the ETB. It's a tripartite, and we'd work with the HSE. So the HSE would fund it. The ETB provide us with training, and we have our hub in Tala Hospital. And we have 10 individuals that would work across 3 different departments. They work across a number of departments, but they have 3 work rotations. They do it for a year, and the idea is that they will build up their CV, they will gain experience, they will gain exposure to what it's like to work in the workforce. They are supernumerary, they're a trainee, and for the year they're constantly learning. We have staff there that support them and support the team. And afterwards, we have a business network that's developed, and that supports people to go on into open employment or education or training or what they want to do. I suppose the challenges that we see is that we haven't got the funding to work with people when they're in school, and generally, except for the few projects we have, people come to us at 18 years of age, and then we have a period of time where we have to work with people on the transitions, and transitions for people can be difficult. What helps to overcome challenges is someone like Hannah, who tells her story and tells the challenges that she's overcome and what she's achieved in her life. We also need greater access to QQI level training courses. So, you know, there's levels 5 in colleges, but sometimes people need level 2, level 3 and level 4. And we can find it greatly difficult to access them. We also, like policy was spoken about this morning, but it's getting all the departments to actually talk together. So on the ground, we can actually just keep on working, and we're not encumbered by, if you support someone into employment, that should be the Department of Social Protection that's paying for that. So we need them to, I suppose, sort out the departments and the roles they play so that we can get on with supporting people to live their life and achieve their dreams. And then access to courses. Unfortunately, sometimes it comes down to the relationship that we actually develop, whereas it should be uniform and it should be equal and it should be inclusive. And we have brilliant experiences, and sometimes we don't have such great experiences. And I think the more collaboration that happens, that we have with, you know, all the departments and with ETBs, actually really, really help to support a person to achieve their goals and their outcomes in life.
Thank you, Catherine, thank you. And finally, but by no means least, Hannah Byrne, who's been a graduate, if you like, of WALK. Hannah, would you like to talk to us about your experiences?
Thank you very much for having me. Basically, I came into the WALK programme when I was about 18. So from 18 to where I am now, I happened to get into college there a couple of years ago, graduated. At like 18, I was in school, never had like access to like the junior cert or the leaving cert, so I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But it was like, okay, this is what you want to do in the end. You're doing it over for 2 years, not like it's not the whole year doing it. I was very lucky in college, I got like peer support, who happened to be someone who's my own age. As like Catherine explained, it's not someone with her, it was someone who's my own age. I did that for 2 years, so that kind of helped me build my confidence in like doing assignments, studying, interacting with everyone in class, because it was around my own age, but like interacting with people wasn't like the strongest thing I had, even though I will talk to anyone. But it was something like being with these group of girls for like a year. It was kind of like, oh, I have to get to know them a bit better than I have for the year. Maybe I won't see them after a year. I know like I was with a different group the second year. That was good, but at the same time it was also a challenge. I had to get along with everyone. But I really got along quite well. I thought, look, just be myself, do everything I can. After that, like I had the exams. That happened, so I was in a separate room, had a reader, and that helps a lot. In the 2 years I was in Crumlin, I got 2 distinctions, a pass, and I passed most of my ITEC exams. Just waiting for one result to come back, because I had to repeat one. Unfortunately, I failed it by 2%. So I wish they gave the extra 2% to me, but at the same time, it's they're trying to do in a way that it's like have the kind of like the grading fair. So, but you kind of have to like, okay, just bite the bullet and do it. So after I was finished college, it was the job hunting. Not gonna lie, that was the most stressful thing, the stressful like 6 months I had since leaving, about 4 or 5 months since leaving college. It was like, what are you gonna want me? Hours, like one of the places that they really liked me, but what put her off was the hours. it was like heartbreaking to know that, oh my God, I did this trial, unfortunately didn't want me. So as they were saying in my introduction, the Town Ferry, I was there, supposed to be there for work experience for 10 weeks. I got kept on for the end of summer, been there for the last 3 years. I was off for about 2 weeks, and then the owner, she turns around to me, I was like, how are you? I was like, grand. And she's like, talking about uniforms, like, sure, I don't mind. And she turns around, from now on, we're gonna pay you. That was like the moment I felt like, oh my God, like I couldn't believe it. It was like, I was shocked for the rest of the day. For the 2 hours I've been in there, it was like something has been like, I think it was more like I knew that I wanted to be here for the rest of my time, as long as I want to be. Coming home that day, I remember coming home to my mum and dad, I said to her, like, I have some good news to tell you. I was like, what is it? You know, you always wanted me to think I was ashamed that the Town Ferry hadn't given me work. I turned around to her and said, they offered me a job. And it was so nice, because my mum was like nearly cried, because she was so happy, because she knew that I'd been there for so long. I've been there for the last number of years. Even the job hunting, I turned around to my job coach at the time. He said to me, you could leave there. And I said to him, no, I don't personally want to leave there. I've been there for the last 3 years. They're like my family, like my beautician family. I've been there, like, and they've seen me grown since I was 18, this shy 18-year-old who had a bob for like, goodness knows how long, and now I end up doing like this, like shaving the side of my head. So really, I kind of was like, I don't care. I'm gonna stay here until, as long as, even though if it was still gonna be work experience or working, I don't really care. I'm gonna still stay here, even though I'm like, if I get offered a job somewhere else, I'm gonna still stay there and trying to find a day that will suit them and that will suit me. And I've never thought that I would see the day I'd be saying, like, talking about this in front of you. It's like, it's more like, okay, now I'm officially working. Like, even looking at people like they're on the telly or like on the, like Anne Haggerty, she got diagnosed at the age of 40, and she's in the jungle at the minute, and she's like the smartest person that you could ever know, and she's in the jungle, and she's been living with autism for the last so many years and only got diagnosed in her 40s. Like, if she can be that person, I can do what I want. So I feel like even in the taxi there today, a taxi driver was like, I never knew that you would have special needs. And I was like, you kind of just live with it, even though it's like, I have special needs, but it wouldn't be me if I had special needs. So what's the problem with having special needs? Doesn't define me, even though I might have my challenges, but I'm overcome my challenges. Like, my anxiety levels is actually in the lowest has been in such a long time. And I couldn't believe that my anxiety is so low now. And like, I still suffer with anxiety, but not as bad as I was in school. If I said to myself, 18-year-old me, saying to myself, how I'd be talking in front of a conference between up to 150 to 200 people today, I would turn around to them and say, no, you're not. I'm not going to do that. I would refuse to do that. But now, looking at me now, 22 years of age, I'm talking in front of everyone in this amazing conference. So I'm really thankful that you have had me today and talk about my experience. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to the panel. You've been terrific contributors, and this is a process which has a long way to go, but I think it's off to a great start with your contributions, and each and every one of you, Gerry, Fiona, Hannah, Catherine, Gavin, thank you all very much indeed for your contribution.